My name is Caroline Butler and I'm 36 years old. Last Saturday at my daughter's 9th birthday party, my mother shoved a gift into Hazel's hands and snapped, "Open it, child. It's time you learn the truth. You don't belong to this family. You never did." Hazel read the first line of the court petition and started shaking. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Mom, she's trying to take me away." My mother leaned in with a cold smile right in front of 20 guests and hissed, "Stop being so dramatic. Blood calls blood. You're just borrowed. I'm taking back what should have been mine years ago." The room froze. My husband immediately carried Hazel out. My mother turned to me and whispered smugly, "You're making this dramatic like always." She thought she had finally won in public. She had no idea she had just destroyed herself on camera in front of witnesses. 3 hours later, the same room watched her smile disappear forever when the truth walked back in. Welcome back to Revenge Episodes. This is the channel for mothers who were told to stay quiet until they finally stopped. If a story like this finds you tonight, you're not alone. Drop a if you'd fight anyone for your child and subscribe for the full story. Before I tell you what was inside that box, you need to know how a woman like my mother spends 7 years preparing the day she finally drops the smile. I am the second Hollis daughter. My sister Juliet was 3 years older. We grew up in Greenwich in a house with a navy and ivory crest above the front door. The Hollis Family Foundation. My great-grandfather's quiet inheritance to anyone with the right last name. My father, Gerald, never spoke much. My mother, Patricia, never stopped. From the time I could read, I was told what I was, the reasonable one, the one who would smooth things over, the one who would make sure the room stayed pleasant. Juliet was the bright one, the rebellious one, the one who would marry the wrong kind of man and embarrass us beautifully. That was the family script. We were each given a role at birth. Mine was peacekeeper. I performed it for 30 years. I performed it the night Juliet brought Connor Reed home for the first time, and my mother said, "Reed? It sounds like a piece of grass." "We don't marry into grass, Juliet." Juliet laughed. Connor laughed. I cleared the dishes. I performed it the day Connor died in a car accident in November of 2018. Hazel was a year and a half old. My mother sent flowers and a card that said, "Tragged is the cost of unusual choices." She believed it was wisdom. I performed it the day Juliet died in May of 2019. An aneurysm at 35. No warning. Hazel was 2. She didn't understand. She kept asking when her mother was coming back. I should have stopped performing then. I didn't. I took Hazel home with me that month. I filed for emergency guardianship within the week. My mother told me calmly, sweetly that perhaps Hazel would be better off in Greenwich with her real grandparents in the family house. She said the word real the way other people say registered. She did not mean cruelty. She meant inventory. I said no. It was the first time in my life I had said no to her without an apology attached. Daniel and I had been engaged for 3 months when Juliet died. We had been together for 3 years. He was an investigative journalist at the Connecticut Mirror. Calm, slow, the kind of man who took notes when other men took offense. We married that October. A small ceremony, no Greenwich crest, no foundation board. By then, I was already raising a 2.5-year-old, and Daniel had already begun calling her ours. We finalized her adoption in November of 2020. Hazel Juliet Reed Butler, 3 years old. She wore a dress with a hazel branch embroidered on the collar because I wanted her to know that her name was a place that belonged to her. My mother did not come to the courthouse. She sent a letter instead. I still have it. It said in my mother's even neat handwriting, "I am Hazel's blood. You are a substitute. Surely the court will see the difference." I kept the letter in a drawer with the adoption decree. I did not understand at the time why I kept it. Daniel had named the reason for me 3 years before I was ready to hear it. 6 years passed. Hazel grew into a serious, soft-eyed child who hummed when she read. Daniel and I built a quiet, careful life in Westport. My father, Gerald, died of a stroke in 2023. My mother inherited the foundation chairmanship and a controlling vote on family distributions. She began wearing her grandmother's pearls every day. On the surface, she was the doting Hollis matriarch. She showed up to school plays. She brought gifts to Christmas. But the gifts came with a system. And the system was always the same. Charlotte and Hudson, my brother Theodore's children, the 2 true Hollis grandkids, received savings bonds, monogrammed silver, school heritage cards. Hazel received what my mother called vintage gifts, old handkerchiefs, used books, faded ribbons. The difference was never named. It only added up. I called it sensitivity. I called it old age. I called it grief. I called it everything but what it was. Daniel started carrying a brown leather folder in the fall of 2024. He didn't tell me why. I didn't ask. I had been a daughter, a sister, an aunt, and finally a mother. The boundary between those words was something my mother had never agreed to learn. And I had spent so long believing peacekeeping was love that I did not notice when peacekeeping had become permission. 3 weeks before Hazel's 9th birthday, she pulled a yellow sticky note off her bedroom desk and slid it under my coffee cup. "Mom, can it just be us and not Grandma?" She asked it the way she had learned to ask for permission to skip church. Carefully, already pre-apologizing, I said, "Just us, honey." I meant it. Hazel's birthday list was a sheet of loose leaf taped to the front of the fridge. 6 girls from her class. My best friend Frances Holloway's daughter Maeve, Daniel's cousin Olivia, and her 2 kids. Aunt Margot, the only Hollis my mother had never been able to fully control. That was it. Patricia called Tuesday evening. She called Wednesday morning. She called Thursday at lunch. Each time she said the same thing in a slightly different shape. "Caroline, let me at least bring something. You shouldn't have to do everything alone. I'll come early Saturday. I have something special for her. A gift from the family. You'll let me give it to her first, won't you?" I should have refused. I had refused before, but she said the word family, and family was the word that had always made me agree. I told her she could come at 10 o'clock. She arrived at 9:14. Daniel came home late Friday night with the brown leather folder. He set it on the kitchen counter and did not open it. He kissed Hazel goodnight, came back into the kitchen, and looked at me with the expression he wore when he was about to say something carefully. "Tomorrow," he said. "Whatever happens at the party, just stay calm. Stay where you are. Don't follow me out." I asked him what whatever happens meant. He kissed my forehead and said, "I hope nothing." He was lying. We both knew. I did not press him. The folder sat on the counter all night. Saturday morning arrived bright and warm, the kind of April that smelled like grass and possibility. Hazel came downstairs in a pale yellow sundress I had picked out with her in February. She had decided by the time she was 9 that yellow was her color. "Are we doing the cake?" she asked. "Of course we're doing the cake. I had baked it the night before. Yellow buttercream, a single hazel branch piped on top in green frosting. It had been our tradition since the first birthday after the adoption when she had asked me what hazel meant. I had told her it was a tree that grew slowly and kept its leaves longer than the others. She had nodded once, very seriously, and asked if it would be okay if she was a hazel tree, too. That had been my answer to her every April since the branch on the cake. A small edible piece of yes. Patricia rang the bell at 9:14, exactly 46 minutes early. She was holding a wrapped box the size of a hardcover book. Pale blue ribbon. No card. She stepped inside without taking her coat off. "Where can I set this?" I gestured to the gift table. "This one goes first," she said. "I want her to open this one first. Caroline, promise me." I should have noticed that she kept her coat on. I noticed it. In fact, I told myself it was because she was cold. It was not cold. I told her I would let Hazel decide. She smiled the kind of smile that does not move the rest of the face, and she set the box on the table herself. Then she walked past me to the dining room and stood with her back to the wall, the way a person stands when they have rehearsed the entrance. The other guests arrived at 11. The kids ran into the backyard. Daniel watched my mother for the next 20 minutes without seeming to. I noticed he was holding the brown leather folder under his arm. I should have asked him what was in it. I told myself I would later turned out to be 3 hours after my daughter stopped being a child who believed her grandmother loved her. We brought the cake out at 12:15. 6 girls in pastel dresses pressed in around the kitchen island. Phones held up by parents in a half-arc behind them. Maeve's mom Olivia. 2 other women I didn't know well. Frances, Snorts, had set her own phone on the side console because she filmed everything. She had filmed Hazel's last 4 birthdays and every Thanksgiving since 2020. It was her quiet kindness, the keeper of footage no one else thought to make. I lit the candles. Hazel looked at me. She did not look at her grandmother. "Make a wish, honey." She closed her eyes. "I wished for it to just be a normal day," she said very softly. The other girls laughed. One of them said, "You're not supposed to tell, dummy." Hazel smiled. The candles went out in one breath. That was the last second of the day she was still herself. My mother stood up before I had finished cutting the cake. She walked past the children, past Daniel, past me. She lifted the pale blue ribbon box off the gift table and crossed the room in 5 steps. She did not hand it to Hazel. She shoved it into my daughter's hands. Both her hands on the box, pushing it into the small chest of a 9-year-old. "Open it, child," she said, and her voice was not a whisper. It carried. "It's time you learn the truth. You don't belong to this family. You never did." The room went quiet the wrong way. Frances's phone on the side console kept recording. Hazel looked up at me. Then she looked back at the box. Her small fingers found the ribbon. She pulled it slowly, the way she always opened gifts, as if not wanting to rip the paper. The first layer was a dress, a Greenwich Country Day school uniform, navy pleated skirt, white collar shirt, the school's crest stitched in red on the chest pocket, and embroidered on the inside collar in tiny gold thread. Hazel Hollis. She read it out loud. "Mom, it says Hazel Hollis. Did they spell it wrong?" Aunt Margot's coffee cup made a small sound when it touched the saucer. She had been standing in the dining room archway and she did not move. Frances's phone was still recording. The room had heard the wrong name. The room had also heard which Hollis had not corrected it. Hazel kept going. Under the dress was a folded photograph. Juliet at 17 in a college sweatshirt, smiling at the camera the way she used to smile when she thought no one was watching. The back of the photograph had been written on in my mother's even neat handwriting. "Your real mother would have wanted you here." Hazel did not say anything. She just held the photograph for a moment and then set it down on the rug beside her. Under the photograph was a 6-page document. It was stapled. The top header was bolded and centered. I could see it from where I stood across the room, and I knew what it was before Hazel had finished the first line. "In the probate court for the District of Greenwich in re-petition for appointment of guardian of minor Hazel Juliet Reed Butler, petitioner Patricia Hollis." She read her own name. Then she read the next line. "The minor child should be removed from current custodial arrangement," and her shoulders started to shake. She looked up at me. Her eyes were full. "Mom, she's trying to take me away." I do not remember moving. I remember Frances saying my name in a voice I had never heard her use. I remember Daniel standing up. I remember the room turning into one large breathing thing. I remember my mother smiling. She leaned in toward Hazel with that cold, practiced smile I had grown up under. She put her face very close to my daughter's and she said it loud enough for the 20 people in the room to hear every syllable. "Stop being so dramatic. Blood calls blood. You're just borrowed. I'm taking back what should have been mine years ago. Daniel reached us before I did." He bent down, lifted Hazel. She was 9, but she had gone weightless the way frightened children do, and carried her out of the room without a single word to my mother. He did not slam the door behind him. He shut it softly. The way you close the door on a sleeping child. The petition lay open on the rug. The dress lay folded beside it. The photograph of Juliet lay next to the dress. My mother turned to me. 6 phones in the room were still recording. The Ring doorbell at the front entry, 20 feet from where she stood, was still capturing audio from the open foyer. She did not lower her voice. She lowered it just enough to make the next sentence feel like she was being kind. "You're making this dramatic like always." She smiled again. The smile of a woman who believed she had just won in public in front of the family that mattered most to her. She had no idea what the room had just done to itself. I'll tell you what happened in the next 3 hours. But before I do, I have to tell you something. Because if you have made it this far, you already know what kind of mother my mother is. If you have ever sat in a room and watched a family member do the unforgivable in front of witnesses and then look at you like you were the one being unreasonable, comment one word below, witnessed. I read everyone. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You were paying attention. I did not sit down. Daniel had told me to stay where I was. I had spent my life staying where I was. This time I obeyed for a different reason. From the archway between the kitchen and the dining room, the same archway I had stood in for 30 years. I could see everything. I could see my mother sit back down on the velvet chair my father had bought her in 2017. I could see Theo, my brother, walk over to her and place a hand on her shoulder the way he had been placing his hand on her shoulder since he was 11 years old. I could see Vivian, his wife, standing 3 feet away with her arms crossed, her mouth slightly open, looking at nothing. I could see the other parents gathering their daughters' coats. Maeve's mother stopped by the door with Maeve under one arm and said very quietly, "Caroline, I'm so sorry. I'm going to take Maeve home. Tell Hazel. Tell her she's loved." I nodded. I could not say anything. She left. The other parents followed her one by one without making a sound. Their daughters wide-eyed the way children are wide-eyed when they have understood something the adults wanted to hide. By 12:50, only Theo, Vivian, their children, Aunt Margot, Francis, and my mother remained. 6 adults and 3 children in a room that 80 minutes earlier had been a birthday party. My brother turned on the family voice. I had grown up with the family voice. It was the one Theo used when he was about to ask me to do something I would later regret. Caroline. Mom didn't mean it the way it sounded. Let's just let her say sorry. We can move past this today. We don't need it to become a thing. I did not answer him. I had answered him 1,000 times in 36 years. I had answered him at Thanksgiving in 2011 when our mother had told Juliet she was embarrassing the Hollis name. I had answered him at Christmas in 2019 when Patricia had skipped Hazel's first holiday with us. I had answered him at every funeral, every reunion, every uncomfortable dinner. Each time, I had been the one to make it stop. I did not answer him this time. My mother set her wine glass down. Her purse, the small leather one with the gold clasp she had been carrying since the 80s, was on the side table near the window. She did not pick it up. She did not put it back. She was watching me. She rose. She crossed the room. She came to the edge of the kitchen archway and stopped close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same perfume she had worn to Juliet's funeral. Caroline. Her voice was the whisper she used when she wanted me to feel responsible. Sweetheart, let me have 5 minutes alone. We can sort this out. We don't need to make it bigger than it needs to be. I looked at her. No, I said we can talk when everyone gets back. She blinked. The smile slipped sideways for a half-second before she rearranged it. When everyone gets back from where? You'll see. It was the closest I had ever come to sounding like her. She returned to her chair. She did not pick up the purse. Francis came up beside me, leaned in, and said into my ear, Very low. See, Daniel just texted. He says, don't open her purse. He says he already photographed what's inside 3 months ago. 3 months ago. That sentence rearranged the last year of my life in a single breath. 3 months ago, Daniel had been carrying the brown leather folder for nearly 18. He had been quietly building something I had not even noticed him build. 3 months ago, he had somehow photographed the inside of my mother's purse. He had not been waiting for the party to happen. He had been waiting for her to walk in carrying the proof of what she had already done. I looked at the clock above the kitchen sink. It was 10:07. Daniel had taken Hazel out of the dining room 38 minutes earlier. 3 hours, I thought. He had said 3 hours. I did not know yet what would happen in those 3 hours. But I knew for the first time in 3 decades that I did not need to fix anything before it did. Let me tell you who Juliet was. Because if you do not know my sister, you will not understand what my mother spent the last 7 years trying to undo. Juliet was 3 years older than me. She had our mother's bone structure and our father's quiet. She read books with her feet on the table. She had been the first Hollis daughter in 2 generations to refuse the country club. She had met Connor Reed in a coffee shop in New Haven in 2013 where he was teaching 7th grade English and grading papers in the corner. She married him in 2014 in a backyard wedding with 11 guests. Our mother attended in a black dress. Reed, our mother said in the receiving line, smiling. It sounds like a piece of grass. We don't marry into grass, Juliet. Juliet kissed Connor on the cheek and said, then I'll be a meadow mother. Hazel was born in April of 2017, a serious-faced baby with Juliet's bone structure and Connor's slow smile. Connor died on the way home from a parent-teacher conference on a November night in 2018. The car in front of him stopped suddenly. He didn't. Hazel was 18 months old. Juliet held it together. She was the kind of woman who could hold anything together if you gave her time. She had 8 months. Then on a Tuesday morning in May of 2019, she woke up with a headache she could not describe. And by lunchtime, she was gone. Aneurysm. 35 years old. No history, no warning. Hazel was 2. My mother attended the funeral wearing the same pearls she had worn to my college graduation. She did not cry. She brought a card to the reception that said, "Tragged is the cost of unusual choices." She believed it was wisdom. She believed she was being honest. She handed it to me at the buffet table. I took Hazel home that night. She did not understand. She kept asking when her mother was coming back. My mother tried twice in June, then in August of 2019 to be appointed co-guardian. She used phrases like stability and heritage continuity in long emails to a family attorney she had retained years earlier. The attorney, an old college friend of my father's, declined to push the petition. I did not know about either attempt until 2025 when Daniel showed me copies he had requested from the probate court archives. I do not know what changed between June and August. I know my mother kept the rejection letters. We finalized Hazel's adoption in November of 2020. My mother sent a letter on Hollis Foundation stationery. It said in her even handwriting, "I am Hazel's blood. You are a substitute. Surely the court will see the difference." I kept the letter. I did not know why. Daniel knew why. After my father died in 2023, my mother became chair of the foundation. She began wearing the pearls every day. She began saying at family events things like, "Charlotte will be our president someday." Hazel. Well, Hazel can find her own thing. She enrolled Charlotte in a heritage workshop and bought her a $25,000 savings bond for Christmas 2024. She gave Hazel that same Christmas a faded handkerchief embroidered with the Hollis crest. Hazel said, "Thank you, Grandma," and asked me later that night when we were brushing her teeth, "Am I a Hollis, Mommy, or am I something else?" I told her she was both. I was wrong. She was a third thing. And my mother had already begun building paperwork against the third thing. That Christmas, the December panic attack in my mother's living room, when Hazel had gone quiet and started shaking and finally cried because Patricia had said, "She's just like Juliet. Too sensitive for the family rooms." That was the night Daniel started writing things down. He did not tell me. He told Catherine Riley, a family law attorney he had worked with on a story 2 years earlier. Catherine told him, "Keep a record. Do not act yet. Wait until she does something documentable." In June of 2025, the principal of Cohetown Elementary called Daniel. The school had received an amended emergency contact form adding Patricia Hollis as an authorized pickup. The signature was mine, or the signature claimed to be mine. The principal had recognized something off about it and called for verification. It was not my signature. That call started everything else. Daniel went to Catherine that afternoon. Catherine filed a private record. They contacted Detective Ellis Hartman at the New Haven Identity Crimes Unit in October. Hartman opened a file in November. Between then and April of 2026, my mother, without knowing she was being watched, called Coldtown Elementary 11 times, pretending to be me. She called the office of Hazel's therapist, Dr. Beatrice Lockhart, on March the 17th, pretending to be Daniel. She mailed a forged release of information form to that office from her own Greenwich address 2 days later. She paid $8,200 in cash to a man named Marshall Brennan, her former handyman, to write a fitness assessment of me. She filed a petition for full probate guardianship of my daughter on April 4th. She had been telling herself for 18 months that she was protecting our family name. What she was actually doing was signing it away letter by letter, signature by signature. 4 days before the party, Daniel got a phone call from a source at the courthouse. The petition had been filed. The hearing was scheduled for May 20th. He came home pale that night. He sat me down at the kitchen counter and said, "I need 4 days. Don't ask. Just give me 4 days." I had given him 18 months. I gave him 4 more. I had spent 7 years calling it sensitivity. The folder my husband was carrying called it something else. It called it a pattern. And the woman who had filed the petition 3 weeks ago, believing the court would side with her by next month, had stopped pretending to perform kindness. She was that Saturday morning the version of herself I had spent my whole life refusing to see. The doorbell rang at 2:43. I had been standing in the kitchen archway for 95 minutes. I had not eaten. I had not sat down. Theo, Snorts, had asked me 3 times to talk privately. Vivian had said nothing. Aunt Margot had moved twice. Once to pour herself water, once to look out the front window. My mother had finished her second glass of wine. Frances opened the door. "See," she said very quietly. "Daniel's back. He has people." I crossed the living room. Daniel walked in first. He was holding 2 folders, one navy, one red, and a slim black tablet under his arm. Behind him walked a woman in a gray suit with a black briefcase. Behind her walked 2 officers in Westport PD uniform, one tall, one not. Behind them, a man in his late 40s in plain clothes holding a manila envelope. Behind him, a woman in a navy blazer with a badge clipped at her hip. 6 adults, none of them smiling. Daniel did not look at my mother. He looked at me. "Mom," he said, though he was speaking to Patricia, not to me. My mother had been mom to him for 6 years, and the word carried in the room like a small admission. "This is Catherine Riley, our attorney. These are Officer Calloway and Officer Pendleton from Westport, Detective Ellis Hartman from New Haven, and Special Agent Teresa Voss, Federal Liaison from HHSCR. They are here because of what you put in that box." My mother had been standing. She stayed standing. Her smile, which she had been wearing for the last 95 minutes, had not yet caught up to her face. Catherine Riley walked past her to the coffee table. She set the briefcase down. She opened it flat. She did not introduce herself a second time. She turned to my mother. "Mrs. Hollis, I'd ask you to remain seated for the next 40 minutes. You don't have to speak. You are not under arrest. You are being served." Patricia did not sit. She turned to me. Her eyes were wide and bright, the way only a frightened, controlled woman's eyes can be. She dropped to the whisper she had used over Hazel's birthday gift. The whisper she had used over me my whole life. "Caroline, soft, maternal, final. Sweetheart, you don't have to do this. You're making this dramatic." I did not answer her. Daniel did. He set the navy folder on the coffee table. The folder made a small exact sound like a closing book. "No," he said. "You made it evidence." The room stopped moving. My mother did not whisper after that. She had built her life on whispers. She had not yet learned that paperwork does not whisper back. Catherine Riley opened the navy folder. She lifted the first document, a 6-page stapled stack with the Connecticut Probate Court intake stamp on the cover sheet. She placed it on the table where everyone could see it. "For the record," she said, "the petition Mrs. Hollis filed in Connecticut Probate Court on April 4, 2026, 3 weeks ago, is the same document she handed to her 9-year-old granddaughter at this party 3.5 hours ago. Petition for appointment of guardian of minor filed under Connecticut General Statute Section 45A 616. The minor is Hazel Juliet Reed Butler." My mother looked at the document on the table. Then she looked at her own purse on the side table. Then she looked at no one. Theo had not moved since Daniel had walked in. He was still standing behind our mother's chair, his hand still hovering above her shoulder where it had rested for 95 minutes. He pulled it back slowly. He did not put it back down. For the first time in his life, he did not know where to put his hand. Aunt Margot had moved to the dining room archway. She was watching my mother the way you watch someone you have spent 50 years pretending not to understand. Catherine turned the petition's first page. Catherine read the petition aloud, only the parts that mattered. She read in the tone of a woman who had read documents like this for 20 years and who had learned somewhere along the way that drama was the opposite of weight. The petitioner, Patricia Hollis, asserts that the minor child should be removed from current custodial arrangement and placed in the home of biological grandparent Patricia Hollis, where Catherine paused. She lifted the page. Where heritage continuity can be assured, heritage continuity. I had heard those words for the first time on a name tag 98 minutes earlier stitched into the inside of a navy uniform dress in gold thread. I now understood the petition was the dress. The dress was the petition. My mother had been writing the same sentence into different objects for 18 months, and the gift had been the moment she pressed all the sentences together in front of witnesses. My mother said that language is standard. Catherine said it is not. She turned to the second page. The petition cites a fitness assessment of Caroline Butler dated February 10, 2026 prepared by, and I quote, Consultant Marshall Brennan, M.A., Family Counselor. This assessment characterizes Mrs. Butler as emotionally unstable, isolating, and unfit to maintain custody. Detective Hartman stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He spoke the way a man speaks when he has been waiting 8 months for a single sentence. Mrs. Hollis, Marshall Brennan is your former handyman. He repaired the gazebo at your Greenwich property in 2022. He has no Connecticut psychology license. He has no LMFT credential. He has, as of this morning, never been employed as a counselor in any state. The state of Connecticut requires that he be licensed to evaluate anyone's mental fitness. He is not. He lifted a check stub from his folder. He held it where everyone could see it. This is a Hollis Family Foundation check number 20518 dated February 9, 2026 in the amount of $8,200 paid to Marshall Brennan. There is no invoice. There is no service record. The foundation does not pay handymen out of operating accounts. My brother said, Marshall, the guy who fixed the gazebo? My mother did not answer him. It was the first time in their lives my brother had asked her a question she could not. Catherine opened the next page. Mrs. Hollis added herself to your daughter's school as emergency pickup. She used your wife's name. The principal of Cohetown Elementary called us in June of 2025. We have held this document for 10 months. She laid the form on the table. Beside it, she placed a printout, a second sheet that compared my actual signature from my driver's license renewal with the signature on the school form. They were not the same. They were not even close. My mother had practiced, but she had practiced from a 2018 version of my signature. I had changed how I crossed my C in 2021. I looked at the forgery on the table. I had never seen my mother sign my name before. Looking at it now, I realized she had been practicing for a long time. Daniel set a printed phone log beside the form. Cohetown Elementary phone log. 11 calls from Mrs. Hollis to the school office between July 2025 and March 2026. 4 of those calls were taken by their counselor, Ms. Eileen Donovan. On 3 of those calls, the caller identified herself as Mrs. Caroline Butler. Ms. Donovan, who had been standing in my living room for 2 hours holding a paper plate, attending the party as a guest because her daughter was one of Hazel's classmates, set the plate down. She walked forward. She did not look at my mother. She looked at Catherine. "I took the fourth call," she said. It was the 17th of September, 2025. She said she was Mrs. Butler. She asked for Hazel's full behavioral file. She turned. She finally looked at my mother. Children deserve to be the protagonists of their own files. Hazel was being written into someone else's. My brother sat down. He had not sat down all afternoon. He sat down now. He looked at our mother. His voice when it came out was very small. "Mom, did you actually file this? Did you do this without telling me?" She straightened her back. "Theodore, this is a family matter." He stared at her. "It stopped being a family matter," he said slowly when officers walked through my sister's front door. My mother opened her mouth. She closed it. Vivian, who had not spoken in 3 hours, exhaled. Catherine reached into the navy folder again. She produced a small printed sheet, 6 time-stamped entries, each one a video clip reference. Francis's name was on the first line. Mrs. Hollis. 6 pieces of audiovisual evidence were captured by guests at this party between 12:15 and 12:31 p.m. today. Francis Holloway recorded the full 8-minute sequence. 4 other parents captured the gift segment. The Ring doorbell at the front entry captured audio from the foyer. Connecticut is a one-party consent state. Every recording is admissible. She lifted the tablet from the table. She tilted it toward my mother. The screen was paused on a still frame of Patricia mid-sentence, mouth open, the words on her lips already 3 hours old. "The court can hear you say it," Catherine said evenly. "So can the federal investigator." My mother had spent 40 years controlling what was written down about her. She had not understood that in 2026 the room writes itself. Catherine closed the navy folder. She did not say, "And now for something else." She did not look around the room. She did not pause for emphasis. She simply opened the red folder. The red folder had a small printed label on its cover. HHS Case File 2026-C12. My mother had not seen this folder before. Her face did not change, but her hands folded in her lap. A moment ago went perfectly still. "The first folder," Catherine said, "is state. This one is federal." My mother had prepared for the state. She had not prepared for the country. Catherine lifted out the first page. On March 17, 2026, at 3:46 p.m., someone called the New Haven office of Dr. Beatrice Lockhart and identified themselves as Daniel Butler. That person asked for a diagnostic summary of Hazel Juliet Reed Butler, appointment schedule, treatment notes, working diagnosis. Dr. Lockhart's office refused to release records. They also recorded the call on their standard incoming call log, and the office's compliance officer filed an incident report. The same afternoon, Catherine set a small Bluetooth speaker on the coffee table. She tapped a button on the tablet. "Dr. Lockhart, can you hear us?" A woman's voice, calm and professional, came through the speaker. "I can hear you, Catherine." "Dr. Lockhart, can you describe the call you received on March 17? A woman called my office that afternoon and identified herself as Mr. Butler. She had Hazel's full date of birth, her diagnosis category, her appointment schedule. She did not have her file number. I declined to release any records and asked her to come in person with photo ID. She hung up. I reported the call to my compliance officer that same day and filed an HHS notification the following morning. My mother's hands had not moved. Her eyes had moved once to me and then away. A woman identifying herself as a man. There was only one woman in the room who would have done that. The room knew it. The room had known it before Dr. Lockhart had finished speaking. Catherine lifted the next document. A single sheet of office stationery, the kind doctors' offices sent in the mail, with a HIP release form printed on it. The authorized releaser field was filled out in the same neat, even handwriting as the school emergency form. The signature beneath it read Caroline Butler. This is the release form Mrs. Hollis mailed on March 19. Catherine said she signed your wife's name. She included her own Greenwich address as the return address. She was not careful. She lifted a final sheet, a scanned envelope, Patricia's neat handwriting, Patricia's Greenwich return address, Patricia's choice of stamp. My mother had signed my name. She had also addressed the envelope. The arrogance of the second act was its own confession. Agent Voss took one step forward. She did not raise her voice. She had a federal voice, flat, structured, the kind of voice that did not need to be raised. Mrs. Hollis, you are being notified that an investigation under HIPAA Section 1177 is now open. You are not under arrest today. You will be required to respond to subpoena. I am here to serve that notice and to verify your identity for the federal record. May I see ID? My mother did not move. Agent Voss waited. She did not repeat the question. She simply waited. After a long moment, my mother lifted her purse, the small leather one with the gold clasp, set it on her lap, and opened it. Her hand went inside and stopped. The small black leather notebook was the first thing her fingers touched. I watched her face register the notebook. I watched her face register that she had brought it. I watched her face register that we knew. She let go of the notebook. She found her driver's license. She handed it to Agent Voss without looking at her. My brother, my mother's favorite for 41 years, turned to her slowly. Mother. His voice was thick. Did you call them? Using my brother-in-law's name, the room was perfectly still. My mother lifted her chin. Her smile was not on her face anymore. She had given up the smile 6 minutes ago. What remained was the woman underneath it, the woman who had filed the petition 3 weeks ago, believing she was about to win. I did what I had to do, she said. Quiet, almost steady, for the family name. She breathed in. I just wanted what was best for the family. Hazel is not a Hollis. She was never going to be one. I was trying to fix the trust before it was too late. The sentence sat in the room. Catherine wrote it down on her legal pad. The pen moved slowly. The room watched the pen. Catherine's tablet was still recording. Frances's phone on the side console behind her was still recording. My mother had walked into the room with a smile and a leather purse. She had walked out of the sentence she had just said with nothing, not even the comfort of denying that she had said it. She had not been protecting our name. She had been signing it away letter by letter, signature by signature, recording by recording for 18 months. She did not know it yet, but she had stopped being the chair of the Hollis Family Foundation the moment that sentence left her mouth. For the first time in my life, my mother cried. It was not the kind of crying she had practiced for funerals. It was the kind of crying a woman does when she realizes that the room is no longer hers. When she realizes the people she expected to defend her are sitting very still, and the people she expected to dismiss are taking notes. She turned to me. Her shoulders shook. Caroline, I'm her grandmother. You can't do this to me. I love that child. I did not say anything. I had said something at every family gathering for 30 years when my mother had cried about things she had caused. I had said, Mom, it's okay. I had said, let's just move on. I had said, I'll fix it. This time, I let the room hold the silence. Aunt Margot moved. She crossed from the dining room archway, where she had been standing for the last 90 minutes, to the coffee table. She did not look at me. She did not look at Catherine. She looked only at my mother. In October, she said, you called me from the foundation office. You asked me if I would support moving Hazel out of beneficiary status. You said, I am quoting you, Patricia. She's not really one of ours. I told you I would not. I have been waiting for 6 months for the rest of the family to find out. You asked. She lifted her hand to her left lapel. She unclipped the small Hollis crest pin she had worn every day for 52 years. She set it on the coffee table next to the navy folder. The pin made a small sound when it touched the wood. It was not a loud sound. It was the kind of sound that ends 60 years of family ladder in a single gesture. My mother stared at the pin. She had built her life around that pin. Frances stepped forward next. She had been sitting at the side console where her phone had been recording. She lifted the phone now and slid it across to Catherine. I almost deleted it, she said quietly. I'm glad I didn't. She turned to Daniel. Project it. Daniel tilted Frances's phone toward the wall-mounted television in the dining room. He did not do it with drama. He did not do it with flourish. He simply tapped the screen, and a screenshot appeared, large enough for the room to read, of a text message Patricia had sent Frances on January 14 of this year. It read, Frances, between us, family to family. I'm building a case. The Reed name will not appear on the foundation again. Trust me. My mother saw the screenshot. Her eyes did not look at the room. They went very briefly to the carpet near where Hazel had opened the gift. The petition still lay open on the rug. The dress still lay folded beside it. The photograph of Juliet still lay where Hazel had set it down. My mother had built a story. The story had assumed that everyone in her circle would help her tell it. She had not known that everyone in her circle had been quietly waiting to stop. Eileen Donovan stepped forward last. She did not bring a paper plate this time. She brought a small notebook, the kind a counselor brings to a parent-teacher conference. I have been writing this down since the 17th of September, 2025. She said, for calls, for call lengths, for things Caroline Butler supposedly asked for that Caroline never asked for. I told Mr. Butler about the first call the same week. He asked me to keep a record. I have kept it for 7 months. She closed the notebook. She did not hand it to my mother. She handed it to Catherine. I want to pause here just for a moment before I tell you what Hazel did next. If you are listening to this, really listening, and you have ever wondered whether someone in your family is keeping a notebook about your child, pause for 1 second and ask the school, ask the doctor, ask the people whose signatures yours has been forged on. Comment, check the records below if you are going to. Every time I read one, I remember why I am telling you this story. The door to the living room opened. Hazel walked back in. She had not been carried. She was walking slowly, very deliberately, the way she walked when she was thinking. She was holding her stuffed rabbit by one ear. Daniel had not brought her back. She had asked to come. She stopped in the doorway. She looked at my mother. She did not approach. I knelt down. "Honey, you don't have to be in here." She looked at me. Her eyes were dry. They had not been dry an hour ago. "I want to stay," she said softly. "I want her to see me." The room did not move. My mother did not look up. My daughter stood in the doorway in the yellow sundress I had bought her in February. She was not the paper child my mother had spent 18 months building. She was the real one, and she was standing. Officer Calloway stepped forward. He did not touch my mother. He spoke to her with the politeness of an officer trained to handle a woman who was not under arrest but had nowhere to go. "Mrs. Hollis, we need you to gather your things and step outside with us. Detective Hartman will follow you to your car to confirm your address for federal service." She rose. She picked up her purse. Her fingers reached for the notebook inside it. And then mid-motion, she paused. She set the purse back down on the side table. She did not pick it up again. She did not look at me as she walked past me. She did not look at Hazel. The notebook stayed on my side table. It would be in Catherine's office by Monday. 9 days after the party on a Monday morning in early May, Catherine sent me an email. It said, "Caroline, the court dismissed with prejudice this morning. She cannot refile the same claim. We're done with the state piece for now." I read it 3 times. I framed the dismissal order cover sheet. I had not framed many things in my life. I framed this. I hung it in the small office above the basement stairs where Daniel's brown leather folder had lived for 18 months. The folder was empty now. The papers had moved to Catherine's filing room. The folder had become a kind of monument to the 18 months when my husband had been protecting us from something I had not yet seen. 2 days later, on a Wednesday, the family court in Westport granted a temporary restraining order. 100 yards. No contact via any medium. My mother could not approach Hazel's school. She could not contact Dr. Lockhart. She could not under any circumstance write a letter to anyone at the Hollis Family Foundation about my daughter. Hazel had asked that night at dinner, "Is 100 yards bigger than the front yard?" I had said yes. She had nodded once, very seriously, the way she always nodded when she was processing something. The federal case under HHSCR opened formally that same week. Agent Voss told us in a brief follow-up call that the investigation would run between 8 and 14 months. The state of Connecticut would file its own forgery and identity fraud charges in parallel. The Hollis Family Foundation, audited under emergency provision, froze all distributions pending review. My brother sent me a letter. He sent it the way old families send things, by hand in an envelope with a wax seal he had never used before. Inside was a single page of his neat, level handwriting. Caroline, I am not asking for your forgiveness. I am asking for your address so I can mail this. The foundation is frozen. My children will receive nothing while she remains a trustee. I am filing to remove her. I should have done it 3 years ago. I should have done it when Juliet died. I am sorry. I read it twice. I read it the second time more slowly than the first. I did not write him back yet. I will. I am not in a hurry. Aunt Margot came to visit on the second weekend. She brought a brown paper bag. The kind a grandmother carries home from the grocery store. Inside the bag was a folded sweater, a cream-colored cable knit with a small tear at the elbow that had been stitched up with green thread. Your sister wore this, she said, the year she met Connor. She left it in my hall closet. I have been keeping it for the right person. The right person turned out to be your daughter. Hazel held the sweater for 10 minutes without speaking. She did not cry. She held it up to her face and inhaled very slowly. It still smells like a person, she said finally. That was the closest my daughter had ever come to her own mother. Coletown Elementary issued an internal memo about no contact with Mrs. Patricia Hollis. The following Monday, Dr. Lockhart sent a formal counter letter to Patricia's attorney. Frances Holloway moved in for a weekend just because. She did not say why. She did not need to. She made waffles on Sunday morning and held Hazel for 30 minutes on the couch without speaking. I did not need my mother to apologize. I needed her to be unable to write me into her story any longer. The court had done that for me. 2 weeks after the original birthday on the 9th of May, we tried again. We did not call it a makeup party. Hazel asked us not to. She said very simply at breakfast on a Tuesday. Can we just do my birthday again, but this time the small one? I baked the yellow cake. I piped the hazel branch on top in green frosting. Danielle made the same playlist Hazel had asked for 2 weeks earlier. Frances came. Aunt Margot came. That was it. No other guests. No Hollis crest, no pale blue ribbon anywhere in the house. Hazel pulled the yellow sticky note off the fridge before dinner. She added one name to the bottom. Aunt Margot. She had decided herself who family was. She opened 2 gifts. The first was from me. An empty leather photo album, pale yellow cover, soft to the touch. Inside the front page I had written, "You decide which pictures of yourself you keep." She held the album for a long moment. Then she looked up. "Mom, what if I put one of Aunt Juliet in first?" "That sounds right," I said. The second gift was from Aunt Margot. Juliet's sweater folded with the elbow tear visible and tucked inside the sleeve a small leather journal. Juliet's own from 2014, the year she met Connor. Aunt Margot had kept it for 12 years. Hazel opened it carefully. She read the first line out loud. It was dated October 12, 2014. I think one day I'd like a daughter. I'd want her to be brave. I'd want her to be soft. I'd want her to know she didn't have to be either to be loved. Hazel set the journal down on her lap. She did not cry. She looked at me. Mom, can we put Juliet's name and mine on the papers officially? I said, yes, that is one paper I am happy to sign. She thought about it. Then she said, Hazel Juliet Reed Butler. She said her own name the way a person says a prayer. After dinner, when Frances and Aunt Margot had gone home and Daniel was washing dishes, I stood at the kitchen window and watched my daughter sit on the floor of the living room with the empty album in her lap and Juliet's journal beside her. She had set the journal under her pillow that morning. She had brought it down again before dinner. She had read the first line 3 times. She was 9. Her name was Hazel Juliet Reed Butler. She was a Reed in every way that mattered. She was a Butler in every way that mattered. She was in no way at all a Hollis, and she was exactly enough. My mother had thought she could turn a birthday into evidence against me. She had been right about the evidence. She had been wrong about who it was against. Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who is in the room when the door finally closes and who stays in the room when it opens again. If you have been told for your whole life that you are the dramatic one, that you are overreacting, that you are making it bigger than it needs to be, that family forgives, that you should be the bigger person, I want you to know that I do not believe you anymore. I believe the daughter who handed back a sweater that smelled like a person. I believe the room that wrote itself. I believe the folder my husband carried for 18 months without telling me because he understood before I did that some women need permission to stop being reasonable. If you have ever had to choose who gets to write your child's name, I hope you found your folder before it became someone else's. Subscribe if a story like this one made you feel less alone tonight. Share it with a woman who has been told for years that she is the dramatic one. Drop a single word enough in the comments if your daughter or your sister or you yourself is exactly enough. I'll be here.